All right, let's kick off another deep dive. Today we're going on a culinary tour, but not the kind you're thinking of.
Oh,
We're diving into the world of UK food policy. We've got academic papers, policies, news articles, even a real-world project that's shaking things up.
sounds like a feast for the mind.
Exactly. We're talking England, Scotland, Wales, each with their own unique approach.
Each nation cooking up their own recipe for a better food system. Fascinating.
That's a perfect way to put it. We've got England striving for a prosperous and sustainable system. Scotland's got that ambitious Good Food Nation Act. And Wales, well, they're exploring school food as a universal basic service. Lots to unpack.
There is. Where do we even begin?
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you paint us a picture of the overall UK food policy landscape?
Absolutely. Imagine the UK as a table with different dishes in each nation.
I like it.
England's national food strategy sets the table, aiming for a secure, healthy, sustainable food system. Three main courses: food security and economic prosperity, a sustainable and healthy system, and expanding exports while keeping standards high.
Sounds delicious. But we all know how sometimes the dish falls short of the menu description. What's Scotland serving up?
Scotland's gone for a bolder flavor profile with the Good Food Nation Act. It's the first UK nation to put a national food plan on the table. Quite a statement.
Okay, so Scotland's adding some spice to the mix. What about Wales? That school food is a basic service idea. Is that a side dish or a main course?
Wales is going for a unique blend. Sustainability, community empowerment, sourcing more local ingredients with their sustainable farming scheme, a community food strategy for accessible, healthy food.
So their community food strategy is like a recipe for everyone.
You could say that. And yeah, that school food idea, that's a pretty revolutionary ingredient.
So England aims for balance, Scotland's got bold flavors, Wales is local and sustainable. Wait, we're missing a seat at the table. What about Northern Ireland?
Ah, right. Northern Ireland, they've got their own food strategy framework. Think of it as a set of guidelines for food policy decisions, not as comprehensive as Scotland's Act, but still shapes their landscape.
Got it. Four distinct culinary approaches. But why should our listeners care about these different recipes? What's the takeaway?
That's where it gets really interesting. Each nation's approach has a ripple effect on everyone, from farmers to food producers, businesses, even us eaters.
So it's about real people, not just abstract policy.
Exactly. These policies impact food costs, access to healthy options, even the environmental impact of our choices.
I see the bigger picture now. It's not just about policies, it's about real-world consequences. Let's get specific. We've talked broad strokes, but what about the nitty-gritty of England's national food strategy? How are they turning those goals into action?
Well, turning a recipe into a delicious meal takes careful execution. And in England, they're finding that translating a grand food strategy into real-world change, it's a bit more complicated.
Oh, tell me more. What challenges are they facing?
For starters, there are criticisms about a gap between the strategy's words and what's happening on the ground.
A disconnect between saying and doing.
Exactly. They emphasized supporting domestic food production, but then the government backtracked on a horticulture strategy. A bit confusing.
So like having fancy ingredients listed, but then leaving some out.
Precisely. Another point of contention. The decision to shelve the Health Disparities White Paper. This document was supposed to tackle health inequalities tied to diet, a key part of the strategy's goal.
But by shelving it, doesn't that raise questions about their commitment to a healthier system?
It does. Putting it on the back burner makes people wonder about their true priorities.
A red flag indeed. Seems like a disconnect between aims and actions. Are they walking the walk or just talking the talk?
It's tough to say for sure, but there might be competing priorities at play. The National Food Strategy calls for reducing childhood obesity.
Right, a big issue.
But the government only put a relatively small amount toward a school cooking revolution and hasn't improved access to free school meals, doesn't quite align with their stated goal.
You're right, it seems contradictory, like saying you want to bake a cake but forgetting the sugar.
Yeah.
What about the Environmental Land Management Scheme, or ELMS? That's a big part of their Sustainable Agriculture Plan, right? What's the latest?
ELMS is all about rewarding farmers for environmentally beneficial practices, things like keeping water clean, creating habitats. It's meant to replace the EU's common agricultural policy.
So it's their green recipe, encouraging sustainable farming.
Exactly. It has three parts: the sustainable farming incentive, local nature recovery, and landscape recovery. But there's been some grumbling about it.
What are the main criticisms? Is it not flavorful enough?
Well, some farmers find it overly complicated and difficult to navigate. They're unsure how to plan their businesses with all the uncertainty. Others argue the government isn't providing enough financial incentive for the changes they're asking for.
So ELMS is facing challenges with complexity, funding, and clarity. Still a work in progress.
It seems that way. And then there are those new strategies they're working on, the land use and the new food strategy.
Oh, right. Any insights on those?
The upcoming land use strategy is generating a lot of buzz. It's supposed to lay out their vision for how land is used across England, but it's been delayed a few times. As for the new national food strategy, that's still simmering. We'll have to wait and see what flavors they add.
Sounds like England's food policy is still in development. Lots of adjustments and taste tests happening along the way. But let's move on to another fascinating ingredient in this world. The individuals shaking things up from the outside. I'm talking about food policy entrepreneurs. And I'm excited to dig into Marcus Rashford and his work on child food poverty.
Great transition. People like Marcus Rashford prove that even outside the formal kitchens of government, passionate individuals can have a huge impact on the menu.
Absolutely. Let's dish up that conversation next.
What's fascinating about food policy entrepreneurs is they're not your typical chefs in the food policy kitchen. They're working outside those formal government structures, but they still manage to whip up some serious influence.
So they're like those celebrity chefs who everyone listens to even though they don't own a restaurant.
That's a great analogy. They're often driven by a personal connection to a particular food issue. Maybe they've experienced it firsthand or seen the impact on their community.
Right, they have skin in the game.
Exactly. And they use their platform, their voice, to turn up the heat and demand change.
This academic paper we've got lays out 7 key ingredients in their recipe for success. 7 functions of food policy entrepreneurs. It's like a master class. Should we break those down?
Let's do it.
The first one is defining problems and linking issues. Sounds pretty straightforward, but what does that actually look like in action?
It's not just about pointing at a problem and saying that's bad. It's about really understanding it, connecting the dots between different issues, and presenting it in a way that grabs people's attention.
So more than just complaining, it's about analysis and storytelling.
Exactly. Think of it as crafting a narrative that's both compelling and easy to digest.
Okay, so create a story that resonates, makes people want to listen. What's the next ingredient?
Leading by example. This is where they really put their money where their mouth is. Food policy entrepreneurs often invest their own resources, their time and energy, to show that their ideas actually work.
Ah, so they're proving their recipes actually work, not just promising a delicious meal.
Exactly. They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk, building credibility.
Showing, not just telling. Makes sense. What's the third ingredient?
It's all about building trust, motivation, and legitimacy. This is where networking skills come in handy. Food policy entrepreneurs are masters at building relationships, finding common ground, and bringing people together around a shared vision.
So they're creating a community, a movement, not just a solo act.
Precisely. And ingredient number 4 builds on that, linking actors and building networks.
You got it. Connecting people and organizations from all walks of life, building these powerful coalitions.
Exactly. Amplifying their message, pushing for change together.
It's like they're weaving together a tapestry of diverse voices, creating something much stronger than any single thread. And ingredient number 5 is generating and disseminating knowledge. Tell me more about that one.
They're not just passionate advocates, they're also researchers and educators. They're digging into the data, uncovering the facts, and then sharing that knowledge in a way that's accessible and engaging.
Ah, so they're fighting misinformation with good, solid information.
Yes, raising awareness, helping people understand the issues at stake.
That's so important, especially when everyone has an opinion, but not always the facts to back it up. What's the 6th ingredient in this recipe for change?
Facilitating social innovations. They're always looking for new and creative ways to tackle those food system challenges. Not afraid to experiment, to think outside the box, and to champion innovations that have the potential to make a real difference.
So they're the culinary adventurers, always pushing the boundaries. And the final ingredient.
Recognizing or creating windows of opportunity. This is where the political savvy comes in. They understand the landscape, know when to push, when to compromise, and how to leverage those key moments to advance their agenda.
It's like they're master strategists, always thinking a few steps ahead. These 7 functions really paint a picture of how food policy entrepreneurs operate. They're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And speaking of forces to be reckoned with, Marcus Rashford's work on child food poverty is a perfect example of all these ingredients in action.
Okay, let's talk about Marcus Rashford. He's a football superstar, but he's also become this incredibly powerful voice for social change. His campaign to end child food poverty in the UK has been remarkable. Can you remind us of some of his key accomplishments?
Oh, he's accomplished so much. He successfully campaigned to extend free school meals during school holidays, forcing the government to change their mind. He's teamed up with major food retailers to offer affordable food options for low-income families.
And he's written a book to raise awareness about food poverty.
Right. And remember that incredible petition he launched? Over 1 million signatures led to a parliamentary hearing on child food poverty. He really knows how to rally public support.
He does. Those YouTube clips you shared show just how effectively he connects with people. He uses his platform to give a voice to those struggling with food insecurity. It's incredibly powerful.
It really is. He's so articulate and passionate, and he connects with people on such a genuine level. That clip where he talks about relying on free school meals as a kid, that adds so much authenticity.
Yes, it makes his message so much more impactful.
Exactly. That's building trust, motivation, and legitimacy in action. By sharing his own story, he builds a bridge of understanding, instantly boosts his credibility.
And then there's his collaboration with the Food Foundation, a leading organization tackling food poverty head-on. That's linking actors and building networks in action, right?
Absolutely. Joining forces with them, he amplifies his message, taps into their expertise, gains access to a wider network of resources, a strategic partnership, allowing both parties to achieve more together.
And his relentless advocacy, constantly pushing the government, shows he really understands how to recognize or create windows of opportunity.
Yep.
He never gives up.
He's a true inspiration, a shining example of how one person can make a tangible difference. He's motivating a whole generation to get involved in shaping a fairer and more sustainable food system.
He's living proof that you don't need a fancy title to be a food policy entrepreneur. It's about passion, commitment, and a willingness to roll up your sleeves and do the work.
Exactly. Marcus Rashford has shown us that anyone can be a catalyst for change.
Speaking of different approaches, let's turn our attention to Wales, where they're focusing on sustainability and community-driven initiatives. They're trying out some pretty innovative ideas.
Absolutely. Wales is often seen as a bit of a pioneer in the UK food policy scene, really committed to building a more localized and sustainable food system.
And this idea of school food as a universal basic service, that's particularly intriguing. Can you break that down for us? What does that actually mean in practice?
Imagine a world where every child in Wales, no matter their family's income, gets a free, healthy school meal every day. That's the essence of it. It's not just about filling bellies, though.
It's about more than that, right?
Right. It's about using school meals as a tool to tackle child poverty, improve public health, and build a more sustainable food system. All in one go.
Okay, so it's a multi-pronged approach, tackling multiple challenges simultaneously. What are some of the specific benefits they highlight?
The source outlines 6 key benefits. Reducing child poverty by easing the financial burden on families, improving public health by ensuring kids have access to nutritious meals, promoting sustainability by sourcing food locally.
And supporting local farmers and fishermen.
Yes, creating jobs in the food sector and fostering a sense of community. It's quite a list.
It is. It sounds like a really holistic approach.
Yeah.
But is it actually feasible? Do you think it could really work?
It's a bold idea, no doubt. It would definitely come with challenges. Implementing a program of this scale would require significant investment, meticulous planning, and a robust supply chain.
Right. You need to make sure schools can actually get enough healthy, sustainably sourced food.
Exactly. And of course, it all hinges on political will. Will the government commit the necessary resources?
Those are all important considerations. It sounds like a lot of pieces would need to fall into place. But let's play devil's advocate for a moment. Let's say they DO managed to secure the funding and political support. What are some potential downsides or unintended consequences they might need to address?
That's a good question. One concern is that making school meals free for everyone might lead to a drop in quality.
You mean if schools have to feed more students without more money?
Exactly. They might be tempted to cut corners, opt for cheaper, less nutritious ingredients.
That makes sense. Accessibility shouldn't come at the expense of quality. What other potential pitfalls should they be aware of?
Another issue is food waste. If students don't pay for their meals, they might be less inclined to finish everything, leading to more food being thrown away.
Oh, right. That would undermine the sustainability goals.
Exactly. It's a complex issue with potential downsides to consider.
Those are both crucial points. It seems like this idea, while well-intentioned, requires careful planning and execution. But let's flip the script again. Imagine they overcome these challenges and successfully implement this program, Do you think this model could be adapted and applied in other contexts, maybe even beyond schools?
That's an interesting question. I think this model has potential. Imagine workplaces offering free, healthy meals to all employees, or community centers providing free meals to residents.
That would be amazing.
Right. It could foster social connections and tackle food insecurity at a local level. It's about shifting our mindset from seeing food as just another commodity to recognizing it as a fundamental human right.
I love that. Creating a world where everyone has access to nutritious, affordable food, regardless of their circumstances.
It's a powerful vision, and Wales might just be leading the way.
It's a vision worth exploring. And speaking of bold visions, let's shift our focus to Scotland and their groundbreaking Good Food Nation Act.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that.
The Good Food Nation Act has been making headlines, making Scotland the first UK nation with a national food plan. Tell us about the journey of this act. How did it come to be?
It all started back in 2014, when a vision for Scotland as a good food nation by 2025 began to take shape. It was all about creating a food system that's healthy, sustainable, and fair for all.
So it began with a vision, a desire for a better food system for everyone. What happened next?
Well, in 2015, they formed the Scottish Food Coalition.
A coalition.
Yes, bringing together a diverse group of stakeholders. Farmers, food businesses, health professionals, academics, community groups, all united by the shared goal of a good food nation.
Sounds like a powerful alliance. So they had the vision, they had the coalition. What was the next step in turning this dream into reality?
The Good Food Nation Bill was introduced to the Scottish Parliament in 2021. It went through 3 stages of parliamentary consideration, gathering evidence and input from those stakeholders along the way.
So it was a truly collaborative process.
It was. They wanted to ensure that the bill reflected the diverse needs and priorities of the people it would impact.
So it wasn't just a top-down approach dictated by politicians. They actually listened to the people on the ground.
Exactly. And the outcome was remarkable. The Good Food Nation bill passed with support from all political parties, a rare feat these days. It really demonstrated the power of collaboration.
That's fantastic. It shows what can happen when people put aside their differences and work together. So the Good Food Nation Act is officially on the books. What does it actually entail? What are the key elements?
The Act has several key ingredients. First, it requires the Scottish Government, local authorities, and health boards to create food plans.
Food plans.
Yes, these plans need to outline the outcomes they want to achieve related to food, the policies they'll use to get there, and how they'll track their progress.
So it's about setting measurable goals and holding everyone accountable. What else is in the Act?
The Act also makes it a legal requirement for the Scottish Government to consider the right to food when developing these plans. This is huge because it recognizes that access to adequate, nutritious food isn't just a privilege, it's a fundamental human right.
That's a major milestone. Food isn't just a commodity. It's a vital part of human dignity and well-being. What's the third key component?
The third component is the establishment of an independent Scottish Food Commission.
A commission. What do they do?
Think of them as a watchdog, keeping a close eye on how the Good Food Nation Act is being implemented. They hold the government accountable, offering advice and recommendations.
So they're like quality control, ensuring that the final product lives up to the recipe's promise.
Exactly. They play a crucial role in ensuring transparency and accountability.
Okay, we've got a good grasp of the key elements. Now let's zoom out. What kind of impact do you think this act could have, not just for Scotland, but for the rest of the UK?
This act has the potential to be a game changer for Scotland's food system. By making the right to food a legal requirement, it sets a new standard for food policy.
It's raising the bar for everyone else.
It is. It also creates a framework for a more collaborative and integrated approach, ensuring that food is considered across all government departments, not just those traditionally linked to agriculture or health.
That's a crucial point. Food impacts so many aspects of our lives. It makes sense to have a more holistic approach to food policy.
Absolutely. And looking beyond Scotland, the Good Food Nation Act could be a blueprint for other nations looking to build more sustainable and equitable food systems. It proves that it's possible to legislate for the right to food and create a framework for transformative change.
So Scotland is leading the charge, showing the world what's possible. Do you think other parts of the UK will follow suit?
It's tough to say for sure, but the Good Food Nation Act is definitely generating buzz and sparking important conversations. It's putting pressure on other governments to step up their game.
It's inspiring to see a nation taking such a proactive and holistic approach. It gives me hope that we can create a food system that benefits everyone.
Me too. It's encouraging to see such bold action being taken. So we've covered England, Wales, and Scotland, each tackling food policy in their own way.
It's like a giant laboratory of ideas, with each nation experimenting and learning from each other.
Exactly, a dynamic and evolving landscape.
But one thing is clear, there's no one-size-fits-all solution, and each nation needs to find its own path.
You're absolutely right. What's important is that we keep striving for a better food system.
And that brings us to the big question. What can individuals do? How can we, as listeners, contribute to this movement for a better food system?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's easy to feel like our individual choices get lost in the noise.
Right, like what can I actually do?
I get it, but it all starts with awareness. The more we understand about this complex system, the better choices we can make.
So knowledge is power. Knowing more helps us be more conscious consumers.
Exactly. Supporting local farmers, choosing sustainably produced foods, reducing food waste, these all add up.
So it's about voting with our wallets, making conscious choices. But it's got to go beyond shopping, right? What else can we do?
Absolutely. Get involved in your community, support local food banks, volunteer at community gardens, advocate for policies that promote food justice.
Be an active citizen, not just a passive consumer. I love it. But what about those of us who aren't the protest sign-waving type?
Even simple conversations are powerful. Talk to friends and family, share what you've learned, encourage mindful food choices.
So we can all be food ambassadors, spreading the word, like a ripple effect.
Exactly. And remember, those food policy entrepreneur functions, those apply to all of us. We can all be food policy entrepreneurs in our own way.
I like that. We can all identify problems, connect with others, and find solutions.
You got it. And by supporting organizations doing great work, we can amplify their impact, help build that better food system.
This deep dive has been eye-opening. Different approaches, inspiring individuals, the power of collective action. There's work to be done, but also lots of hope.
I agree. What's encouraging is the growing momentum behind this movement. People are waking up to the fact that our food choices matter, they have an impact.
They're demanding change. And that's where you come in, dear listener. We've given you the knowledge, the tools, hopefully the inspiration. Every action counts.
Building a better food system is a team effort. We all have a role to play. Coming together, using our unique skills and passions to create that future where everyone has access to good food, a healthy planet.
Beautifully said. So go out there, be the change you want to see. Don't forget to check out the show notes for all those resources we mentioned.
Keep learning, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
And bon appetit.